What's up, everybody? Coach Mills here, coming at you with a brand new Valorant video. And in this video, we gotta talk about SOVA getting nerfed in 4.08 and what other characters might get hit. Is it Chamber? There's a lot we gotta talk about, including when the act ends and when the update goes live. So let's break it all down. But the GameLeap website's the best place to become absolutely cracked at Valorant with in-depth tips, tricks, and immortal level guides. So if you really want to climb incredibly quickly, do yourself a favor and go check it out right now down below. Now remember, this is the patch that Jett is getting dramatically nerfed. We talked about it in a previous video. In hindsight, maybe I was a little too negative on the changes, but that being said, I am curious in how it's gonna feel when I get my hands on it. Now for those of you who don't know, the act is actually ending on the 27th, and that's when the majority of these changes are gonna be going through, on the 27th. So mark your calendars, that's the day that everything is gonna change. And something about the article is they actually slipped in changes, or someone they are gonna specifically change. Let's read the snippet and talk about SOVA. Quote, "It's not just about existing duelist balance either, as Jett's power also makes it more difficult to create compelling and viable alternatives for duelist players. Also, it sometimes made it hard to balance other agents. For example, we were concerned about a SOVA nerf before we shipped 4.08, since his utility is a key piece of how many of you deal with Jett in coordinated play. We found it necessary instead to update Jett's dash ability to avoid reworking the entire game around her." So basically, they were caught in a situation where Jett was so powerful where she could just stand in an off angle, wait for someone to peek, get a kill, and dash away, and you had to drone her out potentially in order to force her to dash away or force her to leave ahead of time. They didn't want to nerf Owl Drone or other characters in the game because of Jett's power level. So they were in a situation where Jett was forcing SOVA to be strong and other characters potentially. So that's really interesting that I think about it, and it makes a lot of sense. So now that Jett is getting nerfed in this way, they can freely potentially change other duelists, change other characters, and they're not afraid that Jett is gonna ruin things or Jett is gonna be too powerful if left unchecked with other types of utility. I guess it's really hard to see just how oppressive Jett is because there are other characters that are strong, but they're only strong within the world or context of Jett. So it's like a Jett world and we're living in it. That's basically what has been happening on the development side because Jett has been so powerful, which now everything's clicking for me and it makes a lot of sense. Basically, sooner or later, this had to happen so that changes to balancing the operator, changes to balancing characters like SOVA, other initiators, and characters that perhaps get maybe a little bit too much information too easily. Now, they don't need that anymore because you're not going to get punished as hard because Jett is nerfed in this fundamental way. To put it simply, the floodgates are going to be opened and balance is going to be freed up because of this change. Very interesting, and it's looking like SOVA might get an Owl Drone change. I'm interested in what it's going to look like, and maybe the range is going to be reduced. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think it will just be a cost change. And you see people on multiple sides of the fence. Some people are really hoping that SOVA gets destroyed. I mean, we have Valorant Leaks up here posting this picture saying, "What's up, SOVA mates? Hope you are having a great week so far. Currently wishing on his downfall. I already got what I wanted with Jett. Now we need him gone." I think that's pretty funny. And then there's other people that are like, "Don't touch my boy. Don't touch SOVA." And I understand both sides, you know, but at the end of the day, SOVA's still gonna have the same lineups, the same shock darts, the same recon arrow. Of course, it's gonna be perhaps some other aspects of his kit that get touched. I'm thinking the Owl Drone, but it's hard to know for sure, and I think SOVA will still have his identity even if he's nerfed. And remember what it's looking like, because a lot of the top characters are getting nerfed here. It's like things are getting power crept down. Everything is getting nerfed. Everything is getting weakened. Or rather, the things at the top are being brought down to a lower level, so even things that maybe you thought, hey, they weren't as strong before, they're actually going to be quite a bit stronger because everything else is going to be weaker. So it's pretty interesting, but I think the other big elephant in the room is Chamber. We mentioned this in the previous video, and it really does seem like Chamber is still going to be a problem. He's a character that would still need an Owl Drone to flush out. He could still abuse the operator. Now, sure, you could jiggle peek. It's easier to predict an operator depending on the economy. But if you want operator to be, one, opened up to other characters, it's still going to be broken on Chamber. And two, if you also want to be able to nerf SOVA in the information gathering way, like with his Owl Drone, you need to do something about Chamber. You can't just leave him there and say, oh, yeah, he still exists and he can still do the same shit that Jet had the capability of doing, and the same reason that you needed Aldrone in the first place, or a way to flush out that character. And Chamber has been absolutely climbing the ranks, not just in pro play, but in ranked play as well, going completely ballistic. And if they touch Jet in this way, and they want to touch SOVA this way, it only makes sense that they would also touch Chamber in some way. But here's the thing, Chamber hasn't been meta for very long comparatively to Jet and freaking SOVA, and those characters haven't been touched for the longest time. So maybe it's too soon to touch Chamber. Maybe they want to change these things first, let things settle, and then they see how everything is going to play around Chamber, what's going to happen, and then they can touch him at a later date. That being said, it's also important to understand the distinction between Jet and SOVA. It's looking like they want to still enable Jet's entry, which is why they allow her to still dash onto site with, you just prime the delay and you just go onto site. And they even talked about how they want to make her clearly aggressive and offensive. And Chamber, of course, is a defensive character. You can't entry with Chamber. So that could be the stark difference. But that doesn't actually fix the SOVA problem or the AWP problem or flushing people away. If I had to guess, what I would say they would do is put a slight delay in Chamber's teleport. And you might be saying, okay, that just makes it completely trash. Well, kinda. You could potentially play an off-angle cubby, take a shot at someone, tuck behind the cubby, and then teleport away. Enemies try to clear you and you're not there, right? You can't, like, be in open space, but you could still move around the map. They could even give him a delay and then allow him much further distance apart where he could teleport. Something like that would allow him to transverse the map a lot easier, but at the cost of being able to hold this off angle and then, you know, just yeet away even if he's standing in the middle of nowhere. So that probably would just completely change the character. But I don't know, I really want to pass the question off to you. With Jet getting nerfed, how do you feel about SOVA? How do you feel about proposed SOVA nerfs? And how do you feel about Chamber? Let me know down below, and then go to the GameLeap website for high quality tips, tricks, guides, and so much more. If you want to climb to Immortal very quickly, do yourself a favor, go check it out right now down below.